Hi everyone, it's Rax. The patch just hit today and people are wondering how Evade is. Evade is still godly. You can clear Pit 100 in about 4 minutes, which makes it still one of the greatest builds in the game and probably still the best speed farming build in the entire game. Because it still moves super fast, auto AoEs, everything down. You get the idea. But there is a new super incredible god tier build that I want to showcase for you that we put together today. Okay, yeah, let's do a 90. And this build can crush everything in the game and hits for billions and billions of damage. I'm going to show you some gameplay real quick and show you how to put together. And the good news is there's a variant that doesn't require any mythics that you can put together quite easily. So we're going to use Crushing Hand here, and I mean, just to absolutely obliterate everything. Nothing can survive. I am running the Overpower build, which always overpowers and always crits. So you can already imagine how crazy that is. You don't have to run that build, that particular version. And actually, the other version that doesn't do this, I think mathematically is a little bit better, but it's much harder and more particular to gear for. So I actually think that this one is the easier one to gear for. I just hit for 9.6 billion right there. You can see the mobility and the AoE of this is very good because Ravager allows my core skills to move around and dash to enemies. And so you get the idea. They have absolutely no chance. I mean, I could finish this, but when we get to the boss, I would just two-shot it. So I think probably you understand from seeing this gameplay that this build is completely out of control, can go way past tier 100, is in the conversation for strongest build in the entire game, up with Quill Volley. Let me say right now that there is a build guide on Maxroll written than none other than Woody. So please go show him some love here. So I guess let me explain the build as I have it set up, and then I'll explain to you like the starter version and the other version and why the other one might do slightly more damage, but why this one's easier to gear for. You're going to see me wearing a Shaco. Don't need it for this build. I just happen to have one. You can use a Harmony, and it's nearly as good. Harmony is really easy to farm in the wild or just gambling for it. Okay, so where do we start here? So let's start with the Rod of what I call Rod of Kek-W, or Rod of Kepelike. That might be the first time I've ever actually said it correctly. Your core skills are now basic skills and free to cast and do 30% reduced damage. When you're at maximum vigor, your core skills consume all of your vigor to return to full damage cast at their largest size and become critical strikes with a 3% increased critical strike damage for each point of vigor spent this way. So our core skills are now basic skills. We're going to consume all the vigor and get a big multiplier to our critical strike damage. All right. So I mentioned to you that this build always overpowers and always crits. Why? It's because of Banished Lords, and this drops off of Duriel if you've got some Duriel mats. After you spend 275 of your primary resource, your core skill is guaranteed to overpower, and your critical strikes critical strikes that overpower deal 60% increased damage. We're activating this constantly. It's always up. So what this means is, on every attack, we need to spend all of our resources, and we have to regenerate all of our resources. So we regenerate here with Ring of the Midnight Sun. This is what helps us when we critically strike, we regain our vigor. And so one thing that has been discovered, I don't know who figured this out, but you actually don't need 275 to activate it. You need 275 minus the cost of your skill. But if you remember, we just said the skill is free, so it should be 275. But for some reason, it still actually counts the value of the vigor cost, even though it removes it from the unique. So what I should need here is 275 minus 33. So I need 242 total vigor to make this work. Obviously, there's maximum resource on the rod itself. There is also maximum resource on the Shaco, which is something that helps you reach that point. but you can just reach it just with basic Paragon points and just having the rod. That's why you don't need to have the Shaco. So when you see me here, you're going to see me. I have 263, so I don't have 275, but it works for me anyway. If you're wondering why, that's why. So then let's look here at redirected force. We gain critical strike damage equal to 58% of our block chance, and blocking doubles this bonus for 10 seconds. So then if we go over here, we stack our block chance to the moon because we get 14% block chance for every stack of resolve. So how do we gain resolve? By tempering max resolve. Then we temper max resolve here. We raise our resolve. That raises our block, which raises our critical strike damage, which is why this hits so crazy hard. So that's the basic essence of this build. Use this, and by the way, this is also why we temper basic skill damage. Where do I have it here? Well, I thought I had basic skill damage tempered on something. Oh, here. This is why we have +4 to basic skills. You might be like, well, we're hitting with Crushing Hand. Why? Remember, this makes it a basic skill. That's why we go for basic skills here to pump Crushing Hand. This is why you see me in my, this is why you see me in my skill tree have level 24 Crushing Hand. It's because not only am I pumping Crushing Hand itself from the gloves, but I'm also pumping basic skill from the pants. Okay, so all of those interactions are what make the build feel so great. And then Ravager gives you the auto teleports, which is why I have such great mobility on the build. So let's go to the build variants here. Everything that I just explained to you is the Overpower setup, and there's also even the Overpower before Shaco, where you pick up a Harmony. This is very easy to find. I bet a lot of you maybe even already have this helmet. In your stash, you can gamble for it. And it explains everything that I just explained here. Now, you don't have to go this version. You can go the regular version right here. So if you're just starting out or you have basic ancestral gear, there's all these different paths forward. But when you go for the mythic version, there is another power that you can go for here. Casting a gorilla skill increases your weapon damage by 30% of your armor for 3 seconds, maximum 1500 bonus weapon damage. So you would be using both. You would both be stacking the mechanic that I explained to you, where we raise our resolve to raise our block to raise our critical strike damage. But you would also simultaneously within the build be stacking armor to the moon. That way you can also raise your weapon damage to just crush everything. So this would probably do more damage, and this is very, very helpful if you have a Shaco, because the Shaco grants you the armor, which is helping you buff this bonus. But you have to solve a lot of things here. You have to solve the resolve, you have to solve massive armor, and all of these, different mechanics in order to make it work. You can do whichever one that you want. This one is pretty much slap on a Banished Lords and get some bonus resources, and you're just crushing the entire game. So I wanted to show you the differences. The skill trees for whichever one you're moving through are all listed right here. And then, of course, the full Paragon is right here to copy. And this takes advantage, again, of Viscous Shields. You get 1% increased damage for each 3% of your max life you have as a barrier. Another very strong multiplier to your damage. So if you see barrier generation, or you're wondering, why does the Paragon board keep going for life and barrier generation? Life and barrier generation, it's to buff Viscous Shields. This is where this comes from. I think that's pretty much it. So if some people are just unhappy with the state of Evade, it is slower. It does less damage for sure, but it can still clear Pit 100 very, very easily. It can still decimate a Pit 90 in 2 minutes. If you don't want to take the time to get the cooldown required, a Shaco is extremely helpful, if not borderline mandatory. Then you need the amulet, and you also need the Raxxanterax to build up the CDR, and you're saying, I'm done with that. You want to play something else? This Gorilla build absolutely decimates everything. 4-player Torment, 4 bosses. I can kill Uber Duriel in 1 second. Just boop, boop, gone. Dead instantly. So, and this build is nowhere near max power. I don't have max master working. I don't even have max glyphs. A lot of my glyphs are level 50, so I'm missing at least 150, maybe 200 total levels between my 5 glyphs. And if I really want to get sweaty, we could take off the Banished Lords and also stack the armor for the other build. So the levels that these can get to are just absurd. So enjoy the build. This really does feel like the first Gorilla build, crushing hand, and feel free to crush the entire game with it. Thank you.